It's, you know what? I'm not talking as Mr. Griffith. I'm not even talking as Spoken Griff. Today, I'm just coming as Irvin Griffin. I just read this, and I can't believe the excuses people are coming up with to try to defend George Zimmerman over the Trayvon Martin killing is unbelievable. Just read this article from politicsanonymous.com. Apparently, there's a friend of George Zimmerman's by the name of Frank Taaffe. Well, I don't really care if I'm pronouncing his name right or not. Basically said Trayvon Martin should have been quote unquote upfront and truthful. Basically, on CNN with Jane Velez Mitchell, George Zimmerman buddy Frank Taaffe defended Zimmerman and essentially blamed Trayvon Martin for failing to contritionally apologize and behave in a sufficiently, get this, this is not me making up stuff, this is really what he thought, behave in a sufficiently intimidated manner for being in the community Zimmerman was so zealously guarding against young black males. He admits this! He admits it! And here's the actual quote from the interview. First of all, Trayvon Martin was a guest in our community. He was confronted by George Zimmerman. He was not aware of who Trayvon Martin was, and all he did was go up to him and ask him what was your business here. And essentially all he had to respond was, I'm here visiting my mother. I just got back from 7-Eleven. What's the problem? End of story. There would be no tragedy today. Then he goes on to say, quote, Then again, this is the perfect storm. Once again, there are documented crimes in our neighborhoods that have been perpetrated by one group of young black males. George simply confronted the individual, asked him a question, and he could have simply said that I'm here visiting my mother, and that would have been end of story. Okay, I try not to use a lot of language in my commentaries, and most of the time I succeed. But on this, I got to say, what the fuck? First of all, George Zimmerman was a neighborhood watch person. Last I checked, George Zimmerman did not have a badge. George Zimmerman is not a police officer. Quite honestly, that information that he asked for was really none of his damn business. So let me get this straight. If Trayvon had cowered at Zimmerman's feet, basically kissed his ass, apologized for wearing a hoodie and having his hands in his pockets, and otherwise offended Zimmerman's idea of what type of person should be walking in his neighborhood, if he'd have shown suitable contrition for such offenses against Zimmerman's racial code, if he'd have been given Zimmerman an explanation about why he was there, that Zimmerman was not entitled and had no business asking about. And here's a little fact that Frank Taaffe seems to ignore. George Zimmerman was told by the damn police, stand down, do not confront him. And neighborhood watch rules even say they are not, unless they are coming after you, or unless you catch them in the act of a violent crime, they are not to be confronted. You are to observe and call the police. Sorry, Mr. Taaffe, but that explanation doesn't hold water. Not at all. And it's unbelievable, the stuff that people are coming up with to try to defend this guy when there is no defense. I mean, like I said, he was told by a police dispatcher, stand down, do not confront him. On that alone, right there, George Zimmerman, in my opinion, should have been arrested. On that alone. And to quote the rest of this article, this is actually coming from the writer of the article himself. Basically, in my opinion, and let me go requote. I actually started reading this earlier, but I should have quoted the writer. So let me go back and reread this. Basically, the writer says, so let me get this straight. If Trayvon had cowered at Zimmerman's feet, apologized for wearing a hoodie and having his hands in his pockets, and otherwise offending Mr. Zimmerman's idea of what type of person should be walking in his neighborhood, if he'd shown suitable contrition for such offenses against Zimmerman's racial code, if he had given Zimmerman an explanation about why he was there that Zimmerman was not entitled to and had no business asking about, if he had showed Zimmerman the respect to which Zimmerman believed he was entitled, if he had shuffled his feet and hung his head and pleaded, please, mister, I'm sorry, I'll scurry right back to where you think I belong, Trayvon would be alive? Is that what Taaffe is saying? And Anderson Cooper actually asked questions similar to this to Frank Taaffe, and Taaffe responded, quote unquote, absolutely not, when asked would he believe race played a factor in shooting the Trayvon Martin by self-reported community watchdog George Zimmerman. And here we go again, even though there's proof to the contrary. He goes on to say, quote, George was not a racist. He was performing his duties as watch captain. Whether it be African-American, Latino, Asian, or white, he would have done the same thing. He would approach that person and just asked him, what's your business here? And if he just answered him in an appropriate manner, as you know, I'm just visiting my mother's house. The house is around the corner and be upfront in trouble, there wouldn't have been any problem, end quote. Again, he's ignoring the fact a police dispatcher told George Zimmerman to stand down. I'm sorry, but the excuses that these people are coming up with for this guy is unbelievable. And like I said, they keep ignoring the fact that the police told him to stand down. And he's also ignoring the fact on the 911 call, George Zimmerman is recorded saying, quote unquote, fucking coon. And he's also ignoring, quote unquote, him saying these assholes always get away. Bottom line, this shouldn't have happened. Bottom line, he was not, referring to Trayvon Martin, he was not in the commission of a crime. If he was in the commission of a crime or breaking into somebody's house, that's one thing. But if he's just walking around, I'm sorry. He is not an officer, referring to George Zimmerman. He is not an officer. He is not a deputized agent of the law. He's a neighborhood watch. And there's even question on whether he's even the head of a neighborhood watch there. In fact, there's some question of whether that neighborhood watch is even official in that neighborhood. So I'm sorry, Mr. Taaffe. Your explanation and your reasons is bullshit. And quite honestly, it's an insult to me personally, it's an insult to my intelligence. You can't just, there's people that walk around in my neighborhood all the time that I know don't live here. But I can't just approach them and question them like I'm some security guard or something. If I see something suspicious, I call the freaking police and let them handle it. Because that's what they're paid to do, and that's what they have the authority to do. Nothing more, nothing less. Unless there's something immediate going on that I can't wait for the police, I have no business confronting these people. And that applies to any citizen, not just a neighborhood watch person. Anyway, it's freaking believable. Well, this is Irvin Griffin, and I'm out.